Get ready to conquer the Conqueror.
Hello number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. We are watching and reviewing the new BBC series, first episode of King and Conqueror. As long as it's not King and Muppet. King and Muppet. Now, this is the BBC we are talking about, so normally I would expect complete and utter nonsense, but hey, maybe I'll be positively surprised. Okay, so first thing first, they got the date of the battle right, starting well. Alright, so the first complaint from me is already coming at second 38. When we look medieval battles in movies, it's always a mess. It looks like a skirmish. It's a mess, it's chaotic, one-to-one, no discipline, no formation. And in fact, formation in combat is the first thing we should see on a medieval battlefield. But anyways, at least the helmets and shields seem okay. And maybe this is because I spent some time in the UK, but whenever I see the word bloody precede any noun, I can't help but thinking that they are literally swearing against said noun. Bloody civil war! I do appreciate that the soldiers appear to be wearing actual real metal rings rather than knitted mail. This should be closed up to his chin, but what can I say? 2 minutes in and we are in Normandy. Now, I do appreciate that the first horse we see appears to be a little bit on the smaller side, as indeed medieval destriers would be a little bit on the smaller side. There are exceptions, but in general, I appreciate that. And even though everything is dirty and bloody, this is like immediately after a confrontation, possibly some kind of melee, so that's okay. However, unfortunately, we see the usual trope. Everyone is wearing dark colors, grays, no colors anywhere, apart from the blood on the freaking business end of the axe, and it does have the usual bleak filter applied to anything medieval. Maybe it will change later, we'll see. Another thing that tends to happen in historical drama is the fact that helmets are not fitted. So either they are too big, as it often happens, and sometimes they're instead too small and they kind of look silly where you can't even see from them. Now, given, would it ever happen in a historical context that perhaps helmets were made cheaply and therefore they didn't exactly fit perfectly the wearer? Yes, so off-the-shelf armor is a thing in historical context, so I wouldn't complain about it too much, as long as it's something that appears to happen on the lower rungs of society, so maybe a billman or some kind of low-end soldier. But if noble knights are wearing unfitted armor, then we have a problem of historicity. It's a bit too soon to say, we'll see. Here is where we see the first main historical inaccuracy. So, this man on the right is questioned as to why he is here. And he tells us that he self-invited himself to this marriage or wedding. And when pushed as to why, he says, well, to deflower the bride, as it is my right as a lord. So this is clearly a reference to something called Jus Prime Nocti, which is this idea whereby noble lords in the Middle Ages could claim the right to the first night with a bride during a wedding, if of course the wedding happened in the low classes of society. A horrible thing that, oh my gosh, is such a word of power. But it's a myth. Didn't happen. It's not true, it's nonsense, it's never mentioned in the sources, and so that's a little annoying that now they are presenting it as, oh, these horrible nobles, what are they doing in the Middle Ages? It's not a thing. Jus Prime Noctis, the right to the first night, is not a thing. This is particularly annoying because the reference happens a lot. We have a reference as well on other very famous movies such as Braveheart, where the evil king is using this right that he has and the population is disgusted. We do know that one thing the medieval people did was to write. And of course I'm talking about historians, clergy and the upper class. And yet, within the entirety of Europe, there isn't a single mention of such a right, ever. No sources, nothing, no passage. The only piece of document that could be even remotely considered close to this idea comes from the town of Verson in France. It's from the mid 13th century, and what makes this piece of document interesting is that it was a little bit of a peculiar case because a allotment of land, a fief, belonged half to the Catholic Church and half to the local noble lord, and the monks and the lord are constantly complaining and bickering about who's supposed to get paid their due in taxes by the local peasants. And what makes this interesting is that the monks, as they are discussing this tax, they also say that the peasant families complain about having to pay it in the first place. And what's poignant to this is that the monks say, well, these these peasants complained, but back in the day, families were so poor that when they were asked to pay the tax, sometimes they would just give freely their daughters to the local lord for one night so that they wouldn't have to pay the tax. That's it. 1,000 years of Middle Ages, this is the only mention. It is not a use, which is a very specific type of legal right. And it is very likely that they're only mentioning it to shut the peasants up, telling them about how good they have it compared to whatever the heck happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and it's possibly completely made up. Minute 6:53. What on green planet Earth is he wearing? Yeah. This is another conversation here, dialogue scene that I find a little strange for a historic-inspired drama. So we have this character here. She's the wife of William. She's now having a conversation with their uncle, who is a nobleman and an influential man, the guy in the background here. And during this conversation, he tells her, your enemies are my enemies. And she boldly speaks back. She tells him, I disagree. That's not true. And then she keeps telling him off up to a point where she says that basically she talks about how powerful women are really the ones in control, like particularly when it comes to a king. Yeah, there's a king, but there is this lady and she's the one in real power. Now, this is a very strange conversation dialogue to see in a medieval context, given I'm not saying that it never happened, that you had an actual woman whose influence was realized through their husbands, fathers, brothers, and sons. Absolutely. But it's covert. So in the medieval mind, something like this can happen. You can have like maybe a regent mother, queen mother, and she's the one who's actually pulling the strings. And of course, women can be very influential when it comes to the decisions of their husbands in contexts of power. But stating it like this as a sort of comeback or even threat to an actual nobleman, it looks a little out of place. It should be more subtle to actually make sense. Okay, so I'm halfway through and I got to a part where there was like an ambush in England as William has finally reached. I would like to underline that this guy's dressed a little bit like a witcher, whatever. I do want to say a positive thing though. The acting is really good. So if you're not like me, meaning the pedantry oozes your every pore whenever you watch something historical, I think you will enjoy this. Beautiful shot of a French castle. I like that. Oh, for crying out loud, what is he wearing now? Black leather. Oh my god. Mercians, please have mercy. Hey, look, Victorian target practice pose. Okay, so here on minute 25:41, we have the introduction of what appears to be the Black Knight. I'm in horror of what he's wearing. In horror. At least the height of the bows is okay. That one is fine. Okay, this is nice to see. So now we are in London and we see that there is an artist who is actually doing mural painting inside the buildings. And that's correct. In fact, a lot of medieval walls would have been either plastered in white or they would have had full-on paintings if these were important buildings. And so it's nice to see. I appreciate that. So everyone is dressed in either grey or black. The only exception is dark green. The rest is like a puted color. And this seems to be cross-cultural because I've seen this characteristic both in Normandy, in France, and in England. Only color available is a dark green. Otherwise, it's gonna be grey or black. So, mamma mia. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much. As those who watch this channel regularly, what we should be seeing and the way people are dressed, particularly in high nobility, but in general, is blues, reds, greens, yellows, bright colors all over the place. Yeah, trying to figure out why literally everyone is wearing this. What is this? Like, I get it is some kind of gorget, maybe, but it's made of leather. It just makes him look stupid. I'm just saying. 41 minutes in, more dark green. Okay, so when it comes to the coronation, I have to say it is kind of cool the way it's looking. The bishop looks pretty good. When it comes to the nobles, however, in this shot, you can see that at least the ones that are in the background, apart from the lack of bright colors, do sort of look the part, but a lot of the nobles that are attending the ceremony, as you will see, look like peasants. They really do. It is really strange, the complete misunderstanding of what specifically medieval nobility. I think this is the most striking thing when it comes to the costume department. You know, when you misdress the lower classes, it still looks weird, because when you look at iconography, they still look great, but whatever. You could say, well, but these are particularly poor. It's a terrible time. There was a famine. There was a battle. And so, yeah, okay, whatever. But when you misdress the upper class, it is and you are familiar with the way the medieval nobility actually looked in iconography, is the most striking difference. So what is happening here, it's as if the bishop, who does look the part, is from a separate reality. That's what it looks like. Also, I love him as an actor. That was a pleasant discovery. Love that. Crown him, let's go. And a very cosmopolitan inner court indeed. The occasional black person is okay, by the way, I would like to underline. However, we'll have to see, because I've seen some screenshots. Yeah, I think they're going beyond occasional. I think they're making it inaccurate on that sense. But I don't want to speak too soon. So far, we had some kind of knight who was black, and now we have a black noble attending the crowning. We'll see how it continues. I'll only complain if they go into inaccurate numbers. We'll see. Yeah, so as you can see, this guy seems Middle Eastern. This guy is clearly black. We know that there would have been a very few who traveled, or perhaps merchants, or people that even intermarried. But in a coronation, looks a little out of place. I mean, look at it. We've got, once again, what's this guy? What's this guy? This is like a D&D group. This is a D&D group. So he's wearing some leather bracelets. He's wearing brown at the coronation of a freaking king. This guy has got some red. This guy looks like a medieval. He needs a hat, though. No one is wearing a freaking hat. Medieval people did wear hats. In fact, apart from the freaking bishop, he's wearing hats, of course. Yeah, medieval people should be wearing hats. In fact, I don't know why we don't wear hats. We were wearing hats all the way up to the freaking 1950s. I have no idea what happened. We should bring hats back. Oh, look, one does have a hat, so I do appreciate that. We need more. Once again, these guys look like peasants. This is, by the way, I like that he's holding the sphere. This is a typical symbolism of medieval kings. And yes, it does represent the earth, which is one of those things that I often point out whenever we discuss the concept of flat earth in the medieval period, which was not a belief. They did believe that the earth was round, also because, I mean, they could read ancient Greek and Latin, so it's something that is connected to classical antiquity, at least in the upper echelons. And in the clergy, yeah, they knew the earth was round, and we see this in this symbolism that, as we see, is strengthened by the idea of the cross. So Christ, ruler of the world, king of the world. And then the sword. That's typical symbolism. I like it. It looks like a statue. Okay, so I just finished the first episode. I do want to continue watching. So apart from the fact that I need to for making content, so I would anyways. But I do want to continue watching to see how. So they did a good job when it comes to medieval political intrigue. I appreciated that. So I'm going to speak about that. I just think it would have been so much more beautiful if the costumes were right, if the swords and armor were better, given they did give the correct helmets to the Normans, so at least that. And the mail looks okay, so it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it still looks like the usual black and brown and dark and bleak. Besides, it seems like it was peppered a little bit with inclusivity for the sake of representation, I suppose, which I need to point out when it comes to part of an honest historical analysis. But it's still soon, so if it's the occasional situation, I'll point it out if it needs to be pointed out in its respective context, but as long as they don't exaggerate. I've been told that they do, particularly during battles, but we'll see. So I'm gonna continue. I will watch episode 2 in the next couple of days, and then I'll post my review, historical analysis, and we will continue like that. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this one, absolutely subscribe, and there will be more. I'll review the whole thing if you like it. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.